Jai Sri Krishna. This is Kavita from Hyderabad, and you're listening to the podcast of Bhagavad Gita for the people who love. I'm here to share the words given by Sri Krishna to Arjuna. Do hear me out till the end and like, share, and subscribe to get more episodes of this podcast. So let's start. Jai Sri Krishna. Bhagavad Gita has 18 chapters. Each chapter has various slokas, which will detailed in this podcast. This episode 2 will be about chapter 2 and 72 slokas. Jai Sri Krishna. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Atadvitiyodhyaya Sankhya Yoga. In this chapter, Arjuna reiterates to Sri Krishna that he is unable to cope with his current situation where he has to kill his elders and teachers. He refuses to take part in such a battle and requests Sri Krishna to be spiritual teacher and guide him on the proper action. Sanjay Uvacha 2:1. Lord Madhusudana addressed Arjuna, who was wallowing in pity and shedding tears profusely. 2:2. Sri Krishna Uvacha. From where have this weakness come, O Arjuna, that too at this hour of danger? It does not befit an Aryan like you, who has lived a life of values. This will bring you neither reputation nor heaven. 2:3. Do not fall prey to this weakness, O Partha, O Parandapa. Give up this unmanliness and rise to the occasion to fight. Arjuna speaks to Sri Bhagavan. 2:4. O Madhusudana, how can I possibly attack Bhishma and Drona? How can I shoot arrows at those who I worship? Tell me, O killer of demons. 2:5. I would rather live a life of begging than killing my elders, my teachers, however covetous they may be. After killing them, worldly pleasures will have no significance, tainted with their blood. 2:6. Right now, I am not even sure what is better, conquering them or getting conquered. Do not wish to live after killing them. Yet they stand on the side of sons of Dhritarashtra in the battlefield. 2:7. Overcome by anxiety and weakness, I am confused about my duties. I surrender to you as your disciple. Please instruct me in my best interest. 2:8. Winning a prosperous kingdom on earth or acquiring sovereign powers like that of celestial being will not be sufficient to nullify the immense grief within that is dyeing up my senses. 2:9. Sanjaya said, and then Arjuna said to Rishikesha, O Govinda, I will not fight. There was silence after that. 2:10. O King Rishikesha then spoke smilingly to grieving Arjuna right in the middle of both the armies. 2:11. Sri Bhagavan said, your words are wise, but you are lamenting for something that is unworthy. Neither for the living nor for the dead does a wise man lament. 2:12. There has never been a time when I or you or all these kings were not in existence, and surely we shall all exist in the future too. 2:13. Childhood, youth, and old age are simply phases in the journey of an embodied soul. The next phase is another body. There is nothing abnormal in this. 2:14. Interaction with sense objects leads to experience of joy and sorrow, which are as temporary as the seasons summer and winter, that continually come and go. O son of Kunti, you must adapt to them, tolerate them without losing your balance. O descendant of Bharat 2:15. If one is wise enough to tolerate dualities, to whom joy and sorrow are one and the same, he becomes qualified for eternal life. O Arjuna, the best of men, 2:16. That which is temporary is not the ultimate reality, because the ultimate reality is unchangeable and indestructible. This is the conclusion derived by the wise who have pondered on the subject at length. 2:17. Imperishable and indestructible, that is the nature of the soul which pervades the body. 2:18. What can be destroyed is the external body, housing the imperishable and indestructible soul. O descendant of Bharat, arise and fight. 2:19. In ignorance, one may think that a soul can slay another soul, or a soul gets slayed by another soul. But in truth, the learned know that the soul neither kills nor is killed. 2:20. There is no birth or death for the soul, nor does it ever cease to be. It is birthless, ageless, eternal, without a beginning or an end. Even with destruction of the body, the soul is not destroyed. 2:21. Knowing the true soul to be birthless, deathless, and indestructible, how will you kill anyone, or how will anyone be killed, Partha? 2 is to 22. Just as we discard old worn out clothes, the soul casts off worn out bodies to enter a new body at the time of death. A body is for the soul what clothes are for us. 2 is to 23. The soul cannot be wounded by any weapon, it cannot be burned by fire, nor moistened by water, nor can it be blown away by the wind. 2 is to 24. The soul cannot be broken, burnt, dried, or dissolved. It is eternal, unalterable, immovable, and inedible. It is without a beginning. 2 is to 25. Knowing that the self is invisible, inconceivable, and unchangeable, you should not lament for the body. 2 is to 26. Even if you wish to believe that the self undergoes constant birth and death, there is still no reason to mourn for it, O mighty armed Arjuna. 2 is to 27. Because those born will certainly die one day, and those who die will certainly be born again. Why then grieve over it? 2 is to 28. All created things are unmanifested before birth and after death. They manifest only during life. Why then grieve over it, O descendant of Bharat? 2 is to 29. For some the soul is amazing to see, for some it is perplexing to eat, and for some it is mystery. When described, no one has really been able to decode the soul as it. 2 is to 30. Do not grieve for any living being because the soul dwelling within the body is immortal. 2 is to 31. As a warrior, your duty is to fight without fear. There could be nothing more righteous for Kshatriya than to fight against injustice and adharma. 2 is to 32. Fighting a battle opens the gates of heavenly abode for warriors. O Partha, an unsought opportunity like this should make you happy. 2 is to 33. If you still refuse to fight this dharmic battle, you are sinning by not performing your duty. You will lose your reputation too. 2 is to 34. People will call you a coward. Dishonor is worse than the death for a respectable person like you. O Partha. 2 is to 35. Brave warriors whoever you now will assume you left the battlefield fearing your life. They will all respect for you. 2 is to 36. Your enemies will humiliate you, even question your abilities. Could there be anything worse than that? 2 is to 37. If you die while fighting, you will experience pleasures in heaven. If you win, you will experience pleasures on earth. It's a win-win situation. So stand up, O Kaunteya, and fight the battle with determination. 2 is to 38. And if you fight because it is your responsibility, disregarding joy, sorrow, profit, loss, victory, or defeat, then there is no sin incurred either. 2 is to 39. I have just started with you the wisdom of Sankhya Yoga, also known as analytical knowledge. Now hear well as I tell you about Buddhi Yoga, O Partha. This wisdom will free you from the bondage of karma. 2 is to 40. Following the path of dharma will never go waste. It will never hamper your progress. Whereas even a little advancement will save you from many dangers. 2 is to 41. This path requires resolute determination and focus. If intelligence is irresolute and multi-branched, you will get distracted. 2 is to 42. The Vedas advocate rituals by an appealing play of floral words. Men of scanty knowledge get attracted to it and do not look beyond that. 2 is to 43. For such people, their only goal is material desires and wealthy, heavenly planets, or good birth or power, which they hope to achieve through the Vedic rituals. 2 is to 44. Such strong attachment to worldly powers and sense gratification weakens their determination and they lose out on the path of God. 2 is to 45. The Vedas revolve around the three modes of material nature, the gunas. But you, Arjuna, you have to rise above the gunas. You have to free yourself from the complexities of the material world and be fixed on the self alone. 2 is to 46. Just as a big lake can minimize the importance of a small well, so does the knower of the absolute truth proficient in scripture serve better than the Vedas. 2 is to 47. Although you are eligible to perform your duties of Kshatriya, you have no right to the result of that action. Remember that you are not the cause of that result and still you cannot shy away from the work. 2 is to 48. O Dhananjaya, fix your mind on duty without any thought of the resulting success or failure and achieve the steadiness of yoga. 2 is to 49. Choose to act on the basis of disciplined intelligence rather than desire for enjoyment. Only the miserly clinch to the fruits of action, O conqueror of wealth. 2 is to 50. Therefore, practice yoga, the art and science of working without attachments. Only that can free you from good and bad reactions. 2 is to 51. Endowed with yogic wisdom, the wise decline the fruits of their actions, which bind them to the cycle of life and death. Thus, liberated, they find peace and freedom from suffering. 2 is to 52. Emerging from the forest of illusion, the intelligence becomes detached from what has been heard and what will be heard. 2 is to 53. Not excited by the floral words of the Vedas, the intelligence is fixed in a spiritual trance, what is called the perfection of yoga. 2 is to 54. Arjuna said, O Keshava, how does one recognize such a person with a steady intellect and divine consciousness? How does he speak or sit or move? 2 is to 55. Sri Bhagavan said, when one is in divine consciousness, one gives up all desires arising from the mind and finds satisfaction in the self one. 2 is to 56. One is neither overjoyed nor agitated in happiness or suffering free from desire, cravings for pleasure, fear, and anger. One's mind is tranquil. 2 is to 57. One is of a steady wisdom who is unperturbed by material desires and unaffected by joys and sorrows. 2 is to 58. Like a tortoise pulls his limbs into his shell, one keeps his senses under one's control. 2 is to 59. Often, one may keep the senses under control, but the taste for objects of enjoyment still remains but one. With divine conscience loses the taste for such sensory objects, having acquired a higher taste. 2 is to 60. But the sensory objects, being immensely powerful, can even drag the mind of such a person who has the ability to discriminate. O Kaunteya, 2 is to 61. The only way to maintain steady wisdom is to control your senses and absorb your mind in me. 2 is to 62. If you think about the sense objects, it will lead to attachment to them. Attachment begets desires, and unfulfilled desires can cause frustration and anger. 2 is to 63. Anger compounds delusion. Delusion leads to loss of memory, which in turn destroys the power of discrimination. Loss of discrimination means loss of self and falling to material consciousness again. 2 is to 64. Self control over desires and aversions can attract God's grace. 2 is to 65. God's grace can end all sorrow and the resulting peace fixes the intelligence on God. 2 is to 66. Only a disciplined person can control his senses and mind, have a clear intelligence and contemplate on God. Without contemplation on God, there can be no peace, and without peace, there can be no happiness. 2 is to 67. If the mind anchors for fulfillment of a desire, any of the wandering senses can carry away the intelligence as easily as the wind blows away ship from its course in the sea. 2 is to 68. Only by withdrawing your senses from the sense objects can you be fixed in transcendental wisdom, O mighty armed. 2 is to 69. What is darkness for ignorant beings is daylight. Time of awakening for those with self-control. What is daylight for the ignorant is the dark of night for sages who see. 2 is to 70. Just as the rivers entering the ocean cannot disturb the ocean in any way, desires entering the mind cannot disturb the steady mind of the sage. 2 is to 71. Peace comes to one who gives up all desire for self-enjoyment, gives up his ego, gives up greed as well as a sense of ownership. 2 is to 72. In this enlightened state of consciousness, one never gets confused again. O Partha, if one attains this consciousness at the time of death, one gets liberated from the cycle of birth and death, and all suffering ends by entering the spiritual abode of God. Jai Sri Krishna. This chapter, Sankhya Yoga, can be categorized into four main of topics. First point is Arjuna completely surrenders himself to Lord Krishna and accepts his position as a disciple and Krishna as his guru. Second point is explanation of the main cause of grief, which is ignorance of the true nature of self. Third point is Karma Yoga, the discipline of selfless action without being attached to its fruits. And fourth point, description of a perfect man, one whose mind is judged and one pointed. Please like, share, subscribe my channel. Jai Sri Krishna.